everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, talking about the events of April 2020 or predictions for 2020. Okay, lots to talk about, so this could be a little longer than a normal video. I'm trying to put these things into perspective. So, first of all, let's talk about Mercury. And although the sun is in Aries, right? In April, the sun's in Aries and then later Taurus. But the planet Mercury, which is the thinking planet, has been in Pisces for a longer than normal period because we had the retrograde cycle, right? So in February, Mercury went into Pisces and then it turned around and it went backwards in Pisces. It did sneak into Aquarius for like a minute, but it was pretty much then, went forward and goes back into Pisces. So it's been in Pisces for like, pretty much a lot of February, March, and even a third of April. It doesn't go into Aries until April 20th. The other thing that has happened is that, so it's the retrograde, it's in Pisces, and then also the planet Neptune, which rules Pisces, is connected to Pisces. Neptune has a 200-year orbit and it happens to also be in Pisces. So here's Mercury, like, oh, and here I'm with my ruling planet, and then I'm going back away, and I'm coming back with my ruling planet. So basically, Mercury has been tracking with the planet Neptune. So a lot of things are wonderful about the sign of Pisces. Please don't write me about it. I know Pisces is wonderful. Neptune is a wonderful planet. But the difficult sides are Mercury is our thinking, and Pisces can be confused. It can be unclear. Retrogrades, even though they're great for going internal and discovering things in your subconscious, it can also be, a trip in the subconscious, and it can be unknowns and confusion. And then Neptune itself is also more of the same with the confusion element, the unknown. Neptune can also represent deception and manipulation and the sense of, and fear. And so the idea of people being afraid, then making bad decisions out of fear, or just not being able to know what's happening, being in a state of anxiety. I'm going to talk about Mars and Uranus, so it's not like anxiety, but it's like a dread feeling or confusion or helplessness. The anxiety that would arise from helplessness is part of Neptune Mercury, and so it's like we don't know what we're doing. We're all kind of shooting in the dark here, or and then people getting surmising and conjecture and just sort of like just saying stuff to say stuff or thinking and that, and then your emotions follow, And so this can be the difficult part of this whole Mercury, Pisces, Neptune thing that's going on, and it can make you feel very, very, very anxious. And so we go through Mercury retrograde a lot. It's going to go retrograde, it's like every 3 months for 3 weeks at a time. But it's the fact that it's in Pisces tracking with Neptune that's really different this time. So on April 3rd, Mercury will finally pass Neptune to get on the other side of that. It will still be in Pisces, but I think that's going to help more clarity. And then on April 10, Mercury goes into Aries, which isn't just changing signs, which it is, but it's a whole new cycle because Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. So it's like, whew, like a reset of the mind. And Aries is also very brave. It's very pioneering. It's very courageous. And it's kind of like taking a stand against fear, or you could see it's almost like a confident big brother that wants to help you not be afraid, so you can kind of be in your own mind and say, this is a temporary situation. We're going to have solutions, and probably a lot of solutions are going to arise, or a lot more clarity are going to arise when we get past April 10. So, and within yourself, to be able to be guiding, like Aries represents the pioneer, and even though Neptune and Pisces can be the dreamer and the visionary, it gets a little overly dreamy, which can be almost nightmarish or surreal and disoriented. Great word for Pisces, Neptune. So especially when it's been in there for so long, it gets disorienting, right? We don't know which end is up. But Aries does know. It says, this is the way. This is the way out of the fog. This is the way out of the cloud. And so it's follow the confident leader who knows where he's going. So you can kind of follow that wisdom part of you, the courageous part of you, the part that wants to guide you into a new way of feeling, okay? And then this collective, I think that's going to really help. I think it's going to be a lot of help for viruses. Could be labeled as Pisces because of the contagiousness. Is sort of Pisces. Pisces is lack of boundaries, so how a virus invades you or whatever. And and Pisces also represents mucus and wetness and stuff like that. And so Aries is very dry and clear, and in like a warmth that dries something out. So that also is helpful for the whole deal with the virus of coronavirus. So what's going to happen at this point where Mercury passes Neptune on the 3rd of April, and then Mercury goes into Aries on the 10th. In the meantime, the planet Mars, which has gone into Aquarius, I'm going to talk about in a minute too. So Mars itself, which is, well, it can be restless. It's a lot of different things, but it can be a restlessness. It's going to square Uranus, and that's going to be on the 6th. No, sooner than that. Yeah, it's like the 5th, 6th, and 7th, let's say, of April. And now this is when things can get a little challenging, like if you're in the house with somebody or whatever, but it's very restless. Uranus is like a revolution, or it's kind of like random, and it's like, I don't want to be trapped. And Mars is energy, so it's like trapped energy or rebellious energy. It can be fighting, random fights over insignificant things, but it's obviously a big picture thing, and people are feeling all whatever, pressure cookered kind of. So just being aware of that if you're quarantined with people, that people could be a lot more edgy than normal, and giving each other space can be helpful, even if it's just the other side of the apartment or whatever's going on, or, you know, feeling that you also have your personal freedom in whatever way that is. If it's, again, going to a different part of the house, or, you know, I can order something different for dinner. I mean, little things can make someone feel a little bit of personal power during that time. But collectively, it could be interesting to see what goes on about, you know, we want answers, or we want different facts or something. People can get kind of rise up, you know, with that kind of energy of Mars Uranus, even though it's just a few days. But it can also be a turning point of like solutions coming up. We're moving more into that Mercury and Aries, just kind of an energy shift, okay? There's also a new moon at that time, and the new moon it's a full moon in Aries and then Libra, and it's squaring Pluto, which can be people, again, feeling like Pluto can be a sense of being controlled, you know? And so there's a thing about the moon is your home. So again, it's kind of this like I'm trapped stuff, and just watch out for being just kind of mean to people, or being aware of setting better boundaries with each other before, like when you see the problem coming, it's like, let's figure out how we're going to deal with it if we get really restless together. Let's find something that works. You can implement it instead of just go at each other, you know, that energy, because that full moon is right when we have the Uranus Mars situation, like around the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. So just those few days are a little bumpy. And so let's also talk about now, because there's so many things to cover here. In March, Mars went into Aquarius, and also Saturn went into Aquarius. Now, Mars only stays in a sign for 2.5 months, or 2 months, but Saturn stays in a sign for 2.5 years. So Saturn's going to go into Aquarius until July, and then go backwards, and then it goes backwards in May, but then it heads back into Capricorn sometime in July, and then it will be in Capricorn until the middle of December, and go back in Aquarius for its 2.5 years. But this point in time, Mars is very invigorated, and it's energy, you know, and it's like the shortest distance between 2 points. I want answers. I want change too, because Aquarius is very much about change. And Saturn is careful progress. Mars is like, I want it now. And Saturn is like, well-paced. But Saturn's also in Aquarius. And I think what's going to come out of this time is Aquarius really represents community things, all of humanity. It's kind of interesting sign, because it's all of humanity. When, you know, they're saying on TV, you get these ads like, we're all in this together. And it's very Saturn and Aquarius. and even Mars in Aquarius. Like, we're all humans. We're all going through this. We're having a collective problem, and we can find a collective solution. But a lot of times Aquarius will also be the solution is from a grassroots perspective. Like, even like my part in this, what I can do. And then it can be, I can nurture my community, and the Saturn also has to do with how governments work. And so it's sort of like, people have the power and we're taking power into our own hands. Not like this crazy revolution thing. That's more of Uranian energy. But when it's Saturn, it's like, I can economically nourish my community, and as things get out of this crazy time, and then that really could be a theme that happens while Saturn's in Aquarius over the next basically 3 years, about we really focus on, because it's wonderful to have this global economy, but also what about community economy? And what about local businesses and small businesses? I think there's going to be quite a movement with that. And the Mars could be right now for March and April, people taking those steps and, really the situation bringing us, somehow we're globally all impacted, but also we're caring for our communities more. And so there can be steps being made and plans being made and people committing to that kind of way to do things to support my little part of the world, The one thing, personal growth-wise with Mars and Saturn is I have a friend that's been saying to me lately, slow change is good change. Because Mars wants to do it all, and Saturn's like, no, let's do it thoroughly. And so when we step on that step, we've really stepped on it, and now instead of like rushing forward and going back, it's like, this is a steady step, and then I take another steady step. So if I want to make these huge changes, Aquarius, about changing who I am and living from this higher consciousness, and it's like, but what can I do right now? I don't yell at my partner I'm living in the house with during the quarantine or something, This is how I live from this higher self, like right now. Like it's grassroots, and it's today we only yelled at each other for 2 hours. Tomorrow, or next week, it's 1 hour, whatever, in the quarantine. But it's like noticing improvements, not criticizing yourself for not being this huge changed person. Or I was gonna, become a yoga master, while I was off work or something, and I didn't. I only did yoga an hour a day instead of 5 hours a day or something. It's like, all right, like you made steps toward learning yoga, whatever. And then you're applying that throughout, you're seeing how it has bigger implications and applying those things. Because Saturn wants to see it in real time and in a sort of not so showy way. Not like, if it's a big change, sometimes it just sort of like a firework just goes out, it's like, but Saturn Mars that's tracking together right now and beginning these changes, it's more like humble results, but real results, So not being too hard on yourself, please, about not doing enough, but it's like you're really laying foundational change that will really be evident over time, especially when we get to like Christmas and Saturn's back where it is now, it'll be there again. And it's like, wow, like, if it's yoga, if it's keeping your temper, if it's changing some fundamental thing about yourself, it's like, wow, I really sustained that change, and it made like a huge shift in me by like one simple thing that I did, and I kept doing it, even though it was small. It became this foundational, like putting soil all over, and then all the seeds come out of that really fertile soil. You didn't have to like buy a bunch of plants and put it in; like things sprouted out of that wide way you did that small step. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so that's the Mars and Saturn going together, and that definitely people having power and making and especially with the community stuff. I mean, it's going to be a big theme about we can rebuild an economy by focusing on our communities, and people can choose that, and make big changes. I think that's going to be quite a theme that we're talking about, is what we're going to do when we come out of this, that Mars is sort of getting the plan ready and Saturn sustains the plan. So when we get to, let me talk about that with the plan thing. So the other thing that's happening is that Jupiter and Pluto, Saturn's working in there too, but that's another story. But we're going to talk about Jupiter and Pluto working together. Jupiter and Pluto are close together late March through July this year. And again, it's kind of that similar thing that Jupiter is like the big pictures is ruled by Sagittarius, you know? And Pluto is a powerful, powerful change. And obviously that's happening. Jupiter can also, in a way, represent the economy in terms of generosity and in terms of international spending and stuff like that. And Pluto is just kind of like, Pluto can represent the forces of sort of a deep rhythm. So people, I don't understand anything about economic ups and downs and stuff, but I guess there's some sort of kind of sine wave sort of thing with the economy. And Pluto kind of represents that sort of rhythm. Just kind of like Pluto can be like life and death if it's, like the cycle of the seasons and the way like a perennial plant would go, kind of things like this. So it's like there's ups and downs of economy. It's kind of Pluto, that there's this way it just happens through whatever those patterns are. And Jupiter kind of represents flowing with those patterns and being able to use the part of the pattern the wisest way. So there's, just like there's a crest and a trough in a wave, and I guess that's part of the economics. But Jupiter can be, how do we best use, if there is a trough, how do we best use that? And the wisdom that can come out of that. And one of those ways can be like, and again, if it's personal growth, being compassionate towards yourself when you're not, again, attaining this height of change. And that compassion creates the momentum to go up, and to go on another crest of a wave. The sweetness you have to yourself if you feel like, oh, I'm failing or something. Jupiter also can be a long-term goal. Well, the Pluto sustains that enthusiasm of the Jupiter. So again, it's a great time to make long-term goals, whether it is like, say, savings or something. And it's like, what if I put $10 in a savings account every month? And I did it every month, like the growing of that. Or if you were meditating, 10 minutes a day, and how that increases your bank account of peacefulness, So it's daring to make these big plans that you commit every day in, again, the small, steady way, because we're talking about these planets still being in Capricorn, which links to Saturn, which is that slow and steady wins the race. And so taking, like, I was doing a reading the other day, and there's that saying, I use the metaphor about, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And actually, it's interesting, Jupiter represents elephants, don't ask why, but represents large animals. But, that you gain this goal that is this true heart, depth, desire, need, craving, Pluto. And the Jupiter is like, just being, taking the big picture and saying, I can do this in small portions, and just being consistent with those portions. And then you see you make progress, again, kind of like the end of the year when Jupiter and Pluto come together again. So, and let's see, the other piece is at the new moon, we have April 22nd, 23rd. The sun and the moon together, as they always are, and then there's the planet Uranus right next to it, and it's in Taurus, all happening Taurus. So Uranus is breakthrough ideas, but we're back to this idea of Aquarius again. When I talked about Mars and Saturn in Aquarius, Aquarius is connected to Uranus. And so the sun and moon at having a new moon right at Uranus is breakthroughs in these ideas, again, about the community stuff or other types of innovative concepts. And Taurus is about finances. That can be your personal finances, collective world finances, like some breakthrough way. And again, like just taking small steps, or like, oh, wow, or realizing you have more than you think somehow with how you utilize what you already have. That can be new talents. It can be things that are already in your home. It can be, again, ways you work in the community and connected that way. And, again, about spiritual growth, as I'm working so much thinking about financial economic things when I'm talking about this, but it's also this idea you have more resources than you think, because Taurus represents what you have, and it's quiet things that you have. It's not flashy. It's kind of like Saturn in that idea, Saturn representing Capricorn. But, Taurus is like, I really got a lot of information and let me use this in a new way. Let me apply it in a breakthrough way. And part of that can be that Uranus is using it in everyday things. There's some connection with all this Uranus and Aquarius, which is you take the highfalutin idea and you do it, and if it's, again, yoga, and I'm going to be like so peaceful, and I'm going to, always, whatever, be in this high consciousness when I'm triggered. And then, like, something really annoying happens. Like, how do I do that now? How do I apply pausing or realizing there's a bigger picture and I don't know what that big picture is about how to solve this problem or how to not be annoyed with this person? And it's like, how do I apply this in real time instead of like the big, like, wow, dude, it's like, how do I do it now? So that is more like creative ideas on how to do it. And again, to have the patience that sometimes you just don't. And then that I just didn't do it and I failed becomes an example that leads to wisdom for the future where you won't do it again because that was like a big turning point lesson for you or something that you applied. And turning these things into wisdom is really important too with Uranus. There's a great, Uranus is so excited about learning. And I have a dance teacher who one time he put up a video of a class that he had taught, and I dance Lindy Hop jazz. It's very improvisational and stuff. And he wrote next to the video, practice, fail, explore. So it said practice, fail, explore. I thought, wow, that's so like Uranus. It's like, I learned something from failing. I'm exploring. It's all sort of information coming in about what does and doesn't work, and maybe this thing that doesn't work works over here, and it's not judgmental about things. So there's this idea that like we've all never been in this situation. I've never been stuck in the house this length of time or whatever, and it's like, and sometimes the yoga just ain't gonna work. And it's like, but it is sort of working if I'm learning about myself and I'm forgiving myself and going back to the idea of the trough with the Jupiter-Pluto. So there's something to be gained even from the mistakes that it's not judgmental. Uranus isn't judgmental about I screwed up. It's like, that's really interesting that happened. Or that's a wonderful way to look at that. Sort of new moon can be like a launching into that kind of thinking, about the non-judgment of what's all going on and how we're trying to work with each other, and you're trying to use the principles of what you're growing with spiritually. There's also a saying with the jazz dance scene about there's no mistakes, there's only now I forget the word. There's no mistakes, there's only variations. And Uranus says that too, like, that's one way to do it. Probably wasn't right for this circumstance, but file it away or examine it later. And so curiosity is a great word for Uranus. So applying curiosity to why I'm getting triggered, what's happening, whatever. And that helps because going back to this Neptune stuff we're all in, it's just like, at this point it's like, what is happening? And I think with more planets going into Aquarius and with Uranus doing what it's doing, it's like, it's just more curious about it instead of overloaded. And then the Jupiter-Pluto is saying there's a bigger picture. I can trust this bigger picture, this bigger rhythm. So coming out of all of this, Neptune, what? Surreal, weird. So hopefully by April 10, we're getting more into this curiosity factor and trust rhythm thing. So, okay, that was really long. I know my Aries people have long shut me off, and the Virgos are taking copious notes. If you need me, alunamichaels.com. You can text me at 248-583-1663. And thanks for listening, and bye-bye for now.